Morning guys, Mac here. So today I wanted to talk about the release of VMware Fusion 11. So Parallels Desktop 14 was released about a month ago. VMware has responded with their new version, which is VMware Fusion 11. And I was hoping today to do some comparative benchmarks between the two products, all that sort of good stuff, and show you what the functionality is. But all that's happened is that I've run into problem after problem with VMware Fusion. And I'm going to take you through what some of those problems are. Right, let's have a look at some of the issues I've had with Fusion. So before we get into that, let me just show you what Mac we're running on. So this is a 2017 iMac Pro. It's the 8-core one with 64 gig of RAM. So it's basically the base model just with a RAM upgrade. The first real problem that I've run into with Fusion is that it doesn't play well with other virtualization products. So I have Parallels Desktop installed. I also have VirtualBox installed. And basically, if I've been running any of those others, I've run into issues with Fusion. So let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to fire up Fusion here. That's my basic Windows 10 machine. Let me show you in the machine library. There we go. That's all I've got installed. Now look what happens when I try and start this machine. Cannot power on virtual machine. Too many virtual machines. Now, I only get that if I've at any point in this session run VirtualBox or Parallels Desktop, and I haven't worked out a way to fix it short of rebooting the machine, which is a massive pain. So it's essentially broken my workflow because I tend to use Fusion for my server-based stuff and Parallels Desktop for my Windows 10 kind of desktop environment. I can't do that anymore. It just doesn't work. Now I'm going to have to reboot now, so let me do that and then we'll come back and I'll show you some of the other issues. So we've rebooted. Let's have a look at now. So all I'm going to do is fire up a single Windows 10 machine. Now this is a fresh build machine. I'll show you what resources I've allocated to it. I'll have a quick look at the settings. There you go. I've got 8 cores allocated and 16 gig of RAM. That's actually 4 cores with hyper-threading, I believe. So what we'll do is fire it up and just see what kind of performance we get. Okay, we got there eventually, but that performance was terrible. Now I'm going to speed that up in the video and just imagine what it's like in real life. And I'll show you parallels in a moment, just in real time, just to show you the effect. Now, I wondered whether it was the machine I'd built because I'd built one machine and imported it into 2 platforms. So what I did was I've actually built a fresh Windows 10 machine in Fusion 11 and I still get the same performance issue. And I don't know if you can see there, but the screen's just blacked out. That's something else that I'm seeing, is just random blackouts like that. The other thing that's also a little bit irritating is I'm finding the network performance somewhat unpredictable. There seems to be issues with that. So I'm going to do a speed test on my local machine first. Here we go, just to show you that's on my local machine, native on my iMac. There you go, that's done. Now what I've been finding actually in my Fusion machine is some very sporadic performance. So I first noticed it copying stuff to my NAS. It just seemed the performance seemed to plummet and then pick up again. So let's rerun this test and we'll see what performance we're getting here. As you can see, there is a big discrepancy between what I'm getting natively on the iMac and what I'm getting within the virtual machine. There's something not quite right there, and that was causing me issues. So what else is there? Well, let's have a look at things like the snapshotting. So this machine has Microsoft Office on it. There we go. And just to show you how long the snapshotting takes, let's take a snapshot. Take a snapshot. There you go. Now it appears not to take long at all. So what I'm going to do is just remove Microsoft Office from it. And then what we'll do is we'll restore the snapshot and you can have a look at that. There's Microsoft Office. I'm going to uninstall it. Now I won't make you sit through this because it's not particularly interesting, but let's wait for this to finish. Okay, so we've removed Office from this machine. Now, typically snapshotting is really handy for when you want to do something and you're not quite sure what the effect is going to be, and it's a real quick way to roll back. Now look at this performance. I'm going to go into my snapshots. So I've got a few of them. I'm just going to restore to the one that we just took a few minutes ago. Let's see how long it takes. There we go. That took a little while, didn't it? It's slow. Now, of course, it does mean we get Office back and everything like that. So what other issues have I faced, apart from the fact that I can't run any other virtualization platforms, apart from the fact that it's really slow to boot and close down and do snapshotting? Well, there's also something not quite right with the graphics. Now, I'm running in a window here. If I fire up into full screen, see, that's probably the smoothest I've seen it. Multiple times when I've done this, it's gone black for a little while, it's come back, it's unfrozen for a little bit, and then the screen goes black again. The other issue I have, which I can't really show on this video, is the full screen usage across multiple screens. I actually have 3 screens attached to my iMac Pro. If I try and use more than one of them, the machine just really slows down, the virtual machine, and it becomes pretty much unusable. So the final thing then, let's go back to a single window. The shutdown performance on this is terrible, so I'll show you that in a second. So let me just quickly show you general operating performance. You've seen me fire up Excel. Once the machine's up and running, it's actually not too bad. So it'll run all the software that you want and it'll run it pretty well. It's just that general operation. It's the issue I'm also having with the networking and of course the general performance of this starting up and shutting down. Now so let's look at the shutdown time. There we go, and that's finished. I'm just going to shut that down. Now I did do some benchmarks, so let's have a quick look at those. So in here, for example, we can see Geekbench 4. So this is the Geekbench 4 native in iMac Pro, in Mac OS. So let's have a look at the score that we got running inside the VMware Fusion. So this is the score that I got running 8 cores, but with hyper-threading within the VMware Fusion machine. As you can see, it's a pretty decent score. You're losing, what, 20%? In terms of performance across the multi-core, which is not terrible. I think I've also got the equivalent in parallels as well. Let me have a look. Yeah, there we go. So that one there is in the one on the left there, the 27608 is the performance in Fusion, and the one on the right, 22176 in parallels. Now that would indicate that Fusion is a lot faster in Geekbench scores. But I will say that's not what it feels like. The Parallels machine feels a lot quicker. So perhaps now let's have a quick look at Parallels just to show that I'm being reasonable here. I'm going to fire up Parallels. There we go. Now you can see I've got a couple of virtual machines here, but that Windows 10 machine at the bottom, that's exactly the same as the one in VMware Fusion 11. I did try using this machine imported into both, but I ran into those performance issues, so I assumed that it might be something to do with that import routine, so I built a fresh machine in Fusion. So this isn't the identical machine, but they are both fresh builds, and all I've had is Office put on them. So let's have a look at the performance of starting this machine up. There we go. Now bear in mind that was real time, whereas the one in Fusion I've just shown you, I speeded up just for the sake of sanity of watching this video. So let's have a look at network performance inside Parallels. There you go. Now you can see that's virtually the same as my native speeds directly from my iMac Pro as well. So what about things like snapshotting? Well, let's take a snapshot. There you go, that's done. Now I'm going to remove Office much like I did on the previous one. I won't have you sit through this, it's not particularly interesting. Okay, so Office is gone off this machine now. So now let's have a look and see what happens when I restore a snapshot on here. So I'm going to go to the Actions, Snapshots. The one we've just taken is that one, so let's restore that one. There you go, and we're done. So we should now theoretically have Office back on there. There we go. How much faster is that compared to Fusion? Fusion just seems sludgy. It's just not right. There's something wrong with it. Now, just to be clear, I've not just tried this on my iMac Pro. I've also got it on my MacBook Pro, my 2018 one, and also a 2016 Retina MacBook as well, Retina MacBook Pro. The same problems persist on all three of them. Now, I'm sure Fusion or VMware will get around to fixing these issues, but the point I'm trying to make is that if you're going to jump from version 10 or a previous one, perhaps try the trial until you've made sure that it actually works for you, because I'm not convinced it's working properly. I'm sure VMware is going to get around to fixing these issues because it is a 11.0 release, but for now, there's something fundamentally wrong with the product and I'd be avoiding it. Hopefully you found that vaguely useful, and hopefully it'll help you avoid what could be potentially a costly mistake.